And without further ado, we're going to jump into our first chat of the day, which is giving you the secret sauce of how to scale a business in the very competitive ad tech world. Also some insights on the future of ad tech. So leading this panel discussion, please welcome Chantal Taudet. She's the senior editor of Marketing Dive and Mobile Marketing Magazine.
Where are you? I'm sitting here.
Vamos pegar.
Good morning. I'm really excited to be here. We've got a great topic today with how to grow an ad tech business and scale up. We've got some great panelists here who are going to provide some nice insights for you. I think the startup space is, as a business journalist, it's something that's really fun to write about and to cover because there's so much passion and creativity there. But when you add in the mobile layer on top of that, it becomes even more fun and more special because you're talking about a vision for the future and a vision for how this technology can really change the way that things have been done in the past. So I'll hand it over to these guys in a minute, but first, a little bit about myself and some background on what I see happening in the space. My name is Chantal Taudet. I'm the lead editor on Marketing Dive and Mobile Marketer. These are online news sites covering the digital marketing industry and then the mobile marketing industry. I've been in this space for a while and seen it, continue to evolve. And where we are right now, I think there are some challenges for startups possibly, as well as some interesting opportunities. So I think, in terms of the challenges, you're seeing some slowdown in the smartphone adoption, as well as, maybe interest from venture capital as the space evolves. It's also getting possibly a little more challenging to operate in this space as privacy regulation and possibly some other types of developments happen that are just making it more complex. The good news is that there's definitely some interesting opportunities here, and we've by no means reached the end of tapping mobile for how it can change how marketing is done, both consumer facing as well as within a marketing organization. I think that 5G and some of the other advancements are really going to open up some unique opportunities in mobile. I think I saw some really cool stuff at Mobile World Congress yesterday with Accenture and Qualcomm using eye tracking and mobile VR to help a company that's bringing a new product to market to test how it will look in the retail environment and what's the best way to present it in the retail environment in a way that's easier and cheaper and faster than before. So, that's just one example, but I think there's just going to be a lot more examples like that. Ad sales continue to grow in mobile, and that's going to continue to happen. Again, 5G, I think, is going to help with that, give a boost to that, because 5G is going to really help with the video streaming services, with adoption and use there, and then that's going to open up some really interesting opportunities between TV and mobile advertising that maybe weren't there before. And then back with privacy regulation, it's a big change, and nobody likes change, but it's going to lead to a healthier ecosystem for digital media and marketing overall, and that's going to be good for everyone. So before I have these guys introduce themselves, real quickly, I think you heard we're going to have a Q&A at the end. So do please prepare some questions if you have any. And also, just want to get a sense who you guys are in the audience. I'm going to ask who's maybe a mobile ad tech startup, and then I'll ask who is, you to raise your hands if you're a startup in mobile more broadly and not necessarily ad tech. So first for ad tech, who here is a startup in the ad tech space? Any hands? Okay, great. And then who is a startup in mobile more broadly, not necessarily ad tech? All right, great, thank you. All right, so let's kick it off. Juan, can you introduce yourself, and then we'll go down the line.
Sure, I'm Juan Margenat here. I'm the co-founder and COO of Marfeel. This is my third startup. My previous two startups had nothing to do with mobile or even ad tech or even digital, if you will, right? So, but I love the industry. I love technology, and I started. So when I sold my first startup, I started investing in internet companies, and I like the space more and more. And after exiting my second one, then that's when I met my co-founder Xavi, and well, he needed someone to help him run the business and operations part of the company. He was just starting back then. That was in 2012. And yeah, here we are, 7 years later.
Great. Pepe?
My name is Pepe Angel, originally from Barcelona. It's always great to be back home, but I'm based in San Francisco. It's been 10 years already in the US, and I'm co-CEO and Chief Strategy Officer at Charboost. For those who are not familiar with Charboost, we're a mobile app advertising platform. We help developers. Our mission is to help developers build a business. So we have an SDK that helps them monetize their traffic, and a user acquisition and advertising platform. And again, very happy to share these on the stage with these two gentlemen and with Chantal. Thanks so much for having me.
All right. So my name is Jordi de los Pinos. I'm the founder and CEO at Smadex, which is also a mobile advertising platform more geared for advertisers to help them acquire users for their services. My background is in engineering. I have engineering degrees from university here in Barcelona, and then an MBA from MIT. I was at the States. I lived also 10 years at the States, and I decided to come back here. I worked at Qualcomm that you mentioned before. I was designing chips, 3G chips at the time. Now we are at 5G, and so I guess in a few years we'll be at 10G. And yeah, after 10 years there, I decided to come back. My dream was to bring back all of the things that I had learned in California and in Boston and start a company here. I'm happy to say that it worked well, although it was very, very hard. I successfully sold the company a few months ago to another ad tech company called Headway. And I'm very, very happy to be here. I've known Juan and Pepe for a while. I admire them. In the different things that they did. I remember I met Juan at a TechCrunch event here in Barcelona, and he beat me at a pitch competition. He was first and I was second.
Yeah, but I haven't sold yet, so I don't know.
But I immediately recognized the value in what they were doing, and I've always admired their company. And Pepe, of course, I've known Charboost also from the beginning, and it was like, for me, it was like, the company was like, oh, these guys, they are making it so big. So I'm honored to be here with you today.
Great, thank you guys. All right, so let's kick this off with the first question. Throw it to you, Juan. What's the biggest learning from how you grew your company that you think might still be relevant for startups today that you can share with us?
Yeah, so probably the biggest learning is there is no shortcuts to success, right? So I remember when we started at the beginning, and you raise some money, you hire a few people, you start doing some things, and you believe you're already there, right? And I remember back then we had conversations with some tech giants, and I thought, they're gonna acquire us already, right? And no, right? So it's definitely not that easy. So competition is very hard, and there's you need a lot of hard work to thrive and succeed and keep growing, right? It's a very tough market. There's a lot of competition. As soon as a startup in no matter what field, takes off, 10 others will go behind them and will try to beat them. So you need to surround yourself with very high skilled people. That's also a difficult thing to do, like recruiting. It's very challenging. First, finding or being able to detect the top talent guys, top skill guys that also can be integrated in your culture, understand your company values, all that, and then being able to track those people, right? Because there's also a lot of competition in terms of recruiting. Barcelona now, it's a headache. I mean, we're all hiring, and we're all fighting for the same kind of people, right? So that's also very important, and it's very relevant to be able to stand out and to being really able to attract the top talent.
Okay, thank you. And Pepe, what's the biggest learning you want to share with the audience in terms of how you've grown?
Yeah, it is hard to pick just one learning. We've been around for 8 years. We started in 2011 when the App Store was kind of new, at least. We did have the paid per download model and the advertising model, but in-app purchases were starting, right? And that's really been the model that has dominated on the App Store. So it's hard to pick just one learning, but if I look back and I pick a theme, at least one theme that I think it's still valuable to entrepreneurs today, is developing the ability of being flexible. We've always been quite narrow in the focus of the company, so we started with gaming because that was the industry that we knew the best. We were coming from making games ourselves, so we picked that genre that we knew very well, that we had very good relationships with, and we tried to dominate that. But then we started with just static interstitials, so a very simple format for advertising static images, right? And then video came, and we had to change the infrastructure, change the way the SDK render ads just to bring video on, right? And then the App Store became more broad. And in fact, 3 years ago, if you look at the top charts, it was still gaming. But today, when you look at the top charts, there's a lot more variety. We're all fighting for the eyeballs of users that spend more and more time in other things. I came here using an app, right? So I pay my friends when I owe them money using an app. So all these apps and services are competing for the same users, and now the world is more diverse. And we as an advertising platform are also serving way more than just gaming, right? So I don't know, where I'm going with all this is that while we've tried to always be as focused as possible, we've had to develop the ability to change and be flexible as the industry has changed and evolved.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing we've seen with a lot of companies.
Absolutely.
Being able to be flexible like that.
I think in 8 years in adtech, you've had 8 lives, really.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to go through all these 8 lives. And I think the fact that we're still here today in adtech, that's something that we need to congratulate ourselves for. Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Jordi, what would you like to share in terms of a big learning on
It's hard because I'm the last. I always the cool stuff. But I agree
switch
that
it up next time.
All right. So, but I agree that it's very tough to pick one. Actually, it's very interesting because you learn by making mistakes. And so I made, I think, all the mistakes in the book. There's like the book of entrepreneurship, and there's like, don't do this, don't do that. I did all the wrong things. So I learned a lot, which is great. And so I think biggest learnings for me, it's hard for me to pick one, but I'll say a few. And they don't have to work for everyone. They worked for me. But find something that, that customers are willing to pay for. Don't just do something that is cool. I learned that. I first did something that I thought was very cool and nobody was willing to pay for. So,
what was it, if I may ask?
Well, at that time were coupons for discounts based on location. And so I did something for small retailers, and retailers in 2011 were not interested in this at all. And I thought it was really cool, but nobody was paying for it. So find something that customers are willing to pay for. And then, you know, as a startup, you face all the problems, right? You make all the mistakes and you face all the problems. One of the problems you have is you don't have resources, but you need a great team. And so find ways to get the best possible talent and motivate them so that they stay loyal to the company and want to stay you and share your vision. I wouldn't have been able to build anything without the great team that we have. And so find the greatest possible talent and try to find ways to motivate them with the resources that you have.
Mm-hmm. Great. I'm going to throw the second question to you then, Jordi. We can start with you there. So can you point to one example that maybe change the trajectory of your company for the good or bad, whichever you want. Maybe a meeting with an executive or switching gears on a product, like you mentioned.
Yeah, so again, many stories, but I'll say one that is interesting. So I think all companies will go through the same. You go through the hype at the beginning, and then you have the valley of death that always lasts much longer than you thought. We all know that we have to go through it, but we never expect it to be so long. And then we finally clicked and started to grow. And in our case, we started to grow. It was a combination of finding the right person that knew everyone in the industry and made our platform known to all the right people that were willing to pay for what we were doing. And then we started to grow really fast. It was just like, wow, like doubling. You double 1 week, and then you double the next week. And then things get out of control because you are just so hyped and you're just like thinking of how do we keep doubling and doubling and doubling. And then something terrible happened. I still remember that we were celebrating. Actually, I took all my team to a paintball or something. I'm like, let's go celebrate. I mean, this is amazing. We're going to make it. And almost as we were leaving to the event, I got a call from one of our biggest suppliers telling me, hey, it's great you're growing so much, but one of your clients put malware in your platform. So it was one of our suppliers had put an ad that was really bad. And I'm like, really? I mean, I didn't know. And so, yeah, this is really terrible. What you've done is terrible. I have to cut you off. And I'm like, no, you can't cut me off. I'm growing like hell. You cut me off. You're killing my company. I remember having the conversation. And I remember telling my team, just go play paintball and let me handle this conversation. And yeah, so it was something that really bad had happened because we were just growing and focusing on growth, and we were not focusing on putting controls, making sure that there was quality in our system. We were just like super hyped and super happy. And yeah, so it was a terrible conversation. And after the team came back from paintball, I just told them, look, we are very happy, but this very bad thing happened, and we have to regroup. We have to think about putting quality. It drastically dropped us. We were like growing like this, and we went back like this, down for 2 weeks, no revenues. And then we regrouped. We thought about how to fight this and how to grow in a healthier way. And we could have died after that incident, but we were able to put the control mechanisms to have a healthy platform where then after this period passed, we were able to start growing again in a much healthier way. So something interesting that happened that changed.
Quite a roller coaster. Yeah, Pepe, do you want to share?
I was just thinking, I think this issue with clients, suppliers is pretty common in the industry. I remember the first time that an advertiser that actually represented 20% of our ad spend, it was at the very beginning, and we've learned from that experience, but I remember the day that they just cut down the spend. And I've talked to many companies where in 2014, for instance, 3 clients represented 60%. That was the moment when King was pushing Candy Crush at its peak. Supercell was pushing Clash of Clans. Machine Zone was everywhere also. So 3 big advertisers in gaming really dominated the space. And overnight, almost, they disappear. So many companies suffer from that. In our case, that happened earlier, and we learned, and we never let any of our advertisers dominate or be too concentrated. But I think on the personal side as an entrepreneur, for us, it was a big milestone or something that changed our trajectory, raising money from Sequoia. It's one of the top investors in Silicon Valley, and in fact, we met them in a very casual way. We were not looking for money, which is the best way of raising money. And we just got introduced to them, and in 3 meetings, they decided to invest in us. And we were profitable already back then, so we were not looking for money, but it's really changed the way we think about the industry and the choices we make. I mean, to be honest, we're competing with Facebook and Google, which obviously have way more resources than we do, but at least having the support from someone that thinks big, at least from a financial perspective, helps us think big ourselves and be able to run in a more of a risk-free mentality, and be able to make choices that sometimes are bad and correct quickly, but at least you have the opportunity to make those choices. So I think having in the board and having raised money from Sequoia has been something that personally, as entrepreneurs ourselves and as a company, has changed the trajectory of Chartboost.
Great, thanks.
So in our case, it's probably what happened by the end of, or second half of 2013. So back then we were a pure SaaS company, right? Which from a valuation perspective makes probably a lot more sense than being ad tech, because multiples are way better. You get predictable revenue, and you get longer contracts, if you're good, low churn, et cetera, right? So on the playbook, that was the right move. Well, that was the right way to go. And so we raised our Series A in April 13, and everything was going by the book, right? But right after, it seems like we were even like ashamed, because right after we signed the deal, like our clients started going flat, right? So it was very difficult to onboard clients. It was like, and we were like ashamed, like going to our new investors, like, I don't know what happened, but we're going like that, and we signed here, and now we're like that, right? So it was like, it seemed like we had done it on purpose, right? But they were super, I mean, they totally understood us. They said, listen, don't worry, we've raised a lot of money for what we needed back then was a lot of money. So we were financially comfortable. We didn't were in a rush. So they were like, take your time, think about it. I know you're capable people, you'll find a solution, right? And so then by the end of 13, that's when we decided, okay, this is going nowhere. We need to change the business model, right? And I remember we took a week off in a way, Chappie, my co-founder, and myself. So we went to the US, we went to New York to meet a lot of people in the industry. But basically it was like a few days to back off from our day-to-day and being able to think, right? And everyone was telling us, oh, forget about this industry. Publishing is like crap. I mean, terrible industry to be in. I remember we met the Olympic guys, and they said, yeah, bad industry. They had changed, or they had pivoted also a little bit earlier, and then they sold for 150 million, so not bad advice on them, but we thought, okay, before following everyone's advice, let's give us one last chance, right? And we decided to start monetizing our publisher's inventory on their behalf, right? And we didn't tell them, so it was a bold move in a way, but back then we were smaller or smallish, so, and it was like life or death, right? So we thought, okay, let's see what happens, right? And it's kind of what Jordi said. We started monetizing them. I remember we had a few clients. We're not going to say names, but some of them were really well known, and we wouldn't tell them. And we're activating our demand on Friday nights and deactivating on Monday morning, because we thought, okay, they're going to be less. They're going to see less what we're doing on weekends. So see what happens. And things started, going up again. We started, like what you were saying, doubling and doubling. First thing we did was we bought our ping pong table with that money, I remember. and then things were going like crazy. I remember one of our clients went to visit in France, and they were like, listen, we love the platform, the performance, the usability, UX is great, but we need to make 15,000 a month, and we're making 0 with you guys, so we need to break the contract. And funny enough, that was exactly the number that we had made with them the previous month without telling them. And we were like, okay, here's your money, right? So, and that was like, you could see their faces changing, and well, that's why, and again, we changed from being a SaaS platform to an ad tech company.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Let's start with you, excuse me, Pepe, this time for the next question. What do you think are the biggest opportunities in mobile marketing and ad tech right now, and maybe how has this changed in the past couple of years?
Sure. I mean, I think there's one big trend that hopefully they agree. I'm sure they will, which is the rise of programmatic. And we were started as an ad network, pretty manual now that I look back, because the capabilities of advertising, at least in app, have dramatically changed. I mean, back in the day when we started, we built great tools, a dashboard where you could click a lot of things. You could create campaigns, do your targeting, but the reality is that today we have data, access to data, and manipulation and prediction models to be able to be way more sophisticated than that and bid in real time. And there's nothing more powerful than be able to assess how valuable a user is at that moment in that context, and just by the virtue who that person is or that user is, rather than the context, right? And just saying, okay, this is a user in a casino game versus a news application. So I think programmatic, the capability of bidding in real time is a big trend, and at least it's transforming the way we operate, right? And in fact, we're right now in the middle of a transformation as a company, coming from being just a kind of a manual ad network into a fully programmatic platform, right? Where things happen in real time and at a user level, not at a context level. So definitely programmatic. I would, just to kick it off.
Great. Jordan, you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, so I'm grateful that you say that because our business is in programmatic, so kudos.
All good.
And one of the things that I definitely believe that needs to be addressed in the advertising industry is the attribution of merit for advertising. I think it's a fundamental problem that is not properly addressed today and affects everyone in the advertising value chain. So the key thing is, if I'm advertising for a service and I want to do it well, I need to know from all the places that I'm showing advertising which are more effective. And the companies that are helping me assess the effectiveness of each of the ads that I'm showing, I don't think that are yet sophisticated enough for what it should be. So in other words, to put it simple, imagine that you guys are interested in booking a hotel to spend your vacation. And you see 50 ads for hotels. You see an ad on TV, or you see 30 ads on TV. You see an ads on newspapers. You see ads on mobile apps, you see ads on desktop, you see ads everywhere. And imagine that there's the advertising company, so the hotel chain, needs to know which of these ads was most successful. And imagine that there's a company that comes and says, well, you know, this person finally booked a hotel, and the merit for this booking is all going to be to this just one ad. I think it's impossible to assess that. But that's what's happening today. Now merit for advertising at a broader scale, like 99% of advertisers, assign merit to just one ad, which could be the last one, or there's like different attribution methods. And I think this is wrong. And I think this affects the way that advertisers make decisions on where to allocate budget. And I think that when that's properly addressed, it's going to dramatically change the advertising industry. And I think if I were to start a company today, actually, it would be on attribution for advertising. I think it has a long way to evolve.
I think that's a great point. First, we need to solve the identity of users, right? I mean, I think that's the biggest challenge, but I totally agree.
Yeah. There's, in a way, there's a lot of, also another way of seeing that is there's a lot of, probably because of that, there's a lot of inefficiency in the market, right? And a lot of companies taking advantage of that inefficiency. Not really bringing value to we were talking about that earlier, right? So not really bringing value to the industry, but they just sit in the middle, get a little bit of money from here, put it there, and they get a few cents here and there, right? And yeah, that's absolutely, yeah. There's also I think, so there needs to be a lot of cleanup in the industry that will bring consolidation, which hopefully is good for all of us, right? Yep. And consolidation and cleaning up on the industry, right? Also with the coming of carriers getting into the industry, right? Verizon acquiring AOL, Yahoo. There's also a big trend there, right? Like the coming of programmatic plus data, and as Pepe was saying, unique user identification, and pulling that together with the carrier data and all that. Of course, you need to anonymize all that because of regulations of, and yeah, it's obvious it's the way to go. But that will also bring a lot of value to the industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the attribution one is, I mean, we hear about that all the time. It's been an issue for a while. And yeah, it sounds like there is no easy solve for it. So that's where startups have the biggest opportunity, where there's a need and nobody else has been able to solve it yet. Yep. So yeah.
A $1 billion idea that Jordi gave us.
Let's do it.
That's great. The next question was about the biggest challenges to scaling in mobile marketing and ad tech, and if those challenges you think are a little bit different than maybe a couple years ago. So, Juan, you want to start on that?
So one of the biggest challenges is definitely technology. I'm sure we all have a lot of scale. We almost have 1 billion users per month right now, and we run all the traffic on all the content from our publishers that serve to those users, right? And that's a lot of traffic, that's a lot of users, so a lot of servers, so in terms of sysops, we had one competitor in the US that basically went bankrupt because of that. They weren't able to manage their growth and to keep it at an affordable level, right? Because you need to deliver at a premium content, at top speed, top quality, but containing your costs, right? So that's definitely a challenge we're facing, right? Or a challenge the industry is facing, right? Speed is paramount right now, and Google is, so a lot of sites already are mobile index first. That means that in order to get a good SEO ranking, Google looks first at your mobile site, not your desktop site, right? And that's happening today, and in summer everyone will be mobile first, right? Again, speed in mobile is critical. And to achieve all that, you need a lot of technology and top engineers.
Okay, great. Pepe?
I think there's a lot of kind of macro economy and industry challenges. I'm gonna speak about a kind of entrepreneurial challenge that we have, and particularly in ad tech, I think it's big, which is access to talent, hiring.
Yeah.
I think we're based in San Francisco, probably one of the most competitive cities for technology, and me personally as an entrepreneur, I've been a little bit frustrated with the experience of losing obviously very good talent, rotation, and I think the biggest challenge that we have is not that much the acquisition of the talent, but really the retention. And I think the whole community over there is realizing how important it is to decentralize teams. I think from VCs in Silicon Valley looking for entrepreneurs that are able to build great engineering teams outside Silicon Valley, because it doesn't make sense to pay the salaries and to suffer the retention issues that we have over there. And for us, I mean, the way we've translated this is actually to coming back to Barcelona and building an engineering office here, because we have the opportunity to build a great brand as an employer and be cool as a startup employing talent here. So I think access to talent that is able to adapt quickly. And I think there's also part of the challenges that we have with ad tech specifically is that we don't have a good reputation for some reason. Ad tech as an industry, right? And I think if you're a smart engineer and you want to solve incredibly challenging issues, ad tech is the place to go.
Absolutely.
So join us if you're looking for jobs, because Juan was referring to the speed and volumes that we have. I mean, we have tremendous amount of data from all the users that we see. We have ad relevance, for instance, just being able to show the most appropriate ad to that user based on everything we know about that user. That is a wonderful challenge, and in fact, it's so badly done today. If you think about all the ads that you've seen that are not relevant to you, so that's what we're trying to solve. We're trying to connect advertisers, products, services with the most valuable audiences and the most relevant audiences. So I'm here to also claim it's a great industry to be in. So.
Yeah. I agree actually, and I give that speech many times about how bad reputation ad tech is, because people are scared of these companies now. What are they doing with my data? I think that's one of the things actually that will also change in the future, like how much people will feel secure about how the data is used to give them a benefit. But going back to the question of challenges, access to talent is definitely a challenge. I think fraud, talking about the bad reputation of the industry, fraud is a big challenge in the industry. And going back to the problem of attribution, how fraudsters are getting merit for things that should be given merit to the good guys. The billions of dollars that are spent on fraud are just staggering. Yep. And they are creating a huge reputation problem to the ad tech industry in general. So I think that's a challenge that the smaller companies face to scale. Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yeah.
I think we're going to open it up to questions from the audience at this point, if there are any. We've got some great experts here. They really know, they've been through the ringer when it comes to building a mobile ad tech company. So, take advantage and ask them some questions. Anyone?
The first one is always the hard.
Yeah.
Yes.
Kudos for him.
There we got one.
There's one over
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
I
I think that she's got one in the back, and then.
Right. Oh, I got the spotlight as well. So I'm a little bit curious about the identity problem and what solutions that you see for that.
That's another topic for another startup to be created.
Anyone want to take that?
So I think so if by the identity problem you mean how to identify the same person on different devices, right? How I'm exposed to a TV ad and then I'm seeing something in an outdoors, I'm seeing something in a physical newspaper, and then I'm seeing something on my mobile phone, on my desktop at home, and how can everyone identify the same person? There are companies, cross-device specialized companies that are doing that. I think that there's tremendous opportunity for growth in that, and because it links back to the issue that I said before of attribution and how to attribute merit to the right companies showing you those ads. And I don't discard that this may be solved with the standard initiatives that people will embrace. I think that people are really scared. Ad tech is a little bit the jungle. It was much more. Now with GDPR it's a little bit better. But I think that if we are able, among all of us, to convince people of the good value that advertising can bring, then people might accept that maybe in the future there's going to be, we as individuals will be able to choose one company that will say, okay, I trust this company with my data, and I trust this company to know that I'm that mobile, that desktop, and these devices, and I trust this company to handle my data in exchange for something. So maybe in the future, the cross-device paradigm is going to be solved by companies that will let us give them that, instead of what happens now, which is that we are de facto giving this information to the big monopolies, right? The Googles and the Facebook that know all of us where we are all the time, and we have no say about it. And but I don't know. It's one of the problems to be addressed.
I think the way I analyze this challenge is in two parts. The first one is understanding the journey of a user, and for that you need to create touch points with that user. And the problem is that not every platform in which we interact with ads has a very clear touch point with me, right? If I'm seeing an ad on a TV, you don't really know if it's me watching that ad or if it's my son watching that ad, right? So the first one is how do you create these touch points? And the second one is what we were saying, the unified identity is, again, even if you've created that touch point with me, you need to be able to connect me watching the ad on TV with my device ID, which is an IDFA, it's just a code. And it doesn't have my name or my last name or my personal address, right? So I see the challenge of omni-channel advertising in these two segments. The journey, how do you create the touch point, the necessary touch points throughout the journey, and the identity piece. How do you know that the user was always that person and it was me? Yeah.
Next question.
Hi, my name is Jasper. I'm program manager at 360 Lab, an accelerator. So thanks for the insight. I'm interested about the transition to offline advertising. So online advertising is all about metrics and measurability. So how do you think the future of offline advertising is enabled with new technologies being able to measure these? What do you think are the key technologies that will enable this?
My main principle, and I come from gaming, which is probably the most performance-driven industry in the world, and in fact, it's educated a lot of the other apps and even brands, right? Direct-to-consumer brands right now that think in terms of performance. So for me, my mantra is that what's not trackable doesn't exist. So that is the challenge. Offline channels, because they don't have that connectivity and they don't have that relationship, direct relationship with the user, sometimes doesn't exist in my world. So they can be amplifiers of your voice, but unless you connect internet, you put internet into these channels, they don't exist for me. So for me, the biggest technology is IoT.
Yeah. Exactly. I was going to say that, and I think that that's the holy grail. You know, being able to cross the online to the offline world, and I think 5G and IoT will forcefully address this issue, and so that when we are next to things that are connected, they will be able to connect with us and know who we are. And again, I have to say this with a small mouth because I know that this is very scary for a lot of people, but I also think it's very valuable for humanity. You know, we can bring value to be connected all the time. And there's always, for every new revolution, there's always the bad part and the good part. And it's, you know, among all of us to make sure that good prevails and that we don't let, as a society, bad actors harm us. You know, fire was very useful, but also very dangerous. So the same with adtech.
and so if you think about it, you're going to be able to walk down the street, and the advertisers on the street, they're going to be able to adapt to whoever's watching them, right? As now it happens with your mobile, depending on who goes where, you'll see one ad, but I will see a different ad. So that will probably happen in the near or in the midterm future, right? And as we were saying here, that may be dangerous and scaring. I remember a conversation I had with the founder of Criteo, and he told me at some point a few years ago that they needed to scale back their technology because people were really freaked out on the ads they were seeing, right? So they knew much. So I know it's still kind of freaking when those ads are chasing you through your journey, but they could even be way more scarier than they are, or at least they were a few years ago, right? Because it's creepy, right? And people don't like that. So we'll need to. It's going to be like a difficult transition, and Also, it's true that you have to think of with a different mindset, right? So people our age were used to way different thing, but my kids, come on, they were born with an iPhone on their hands in a way, right? So for them and their generation, it's going to be so much more natural, right? And we may be scared of, who owns our data, who has this, who has that, but the new generation, I'm sure they're going to be way, way less scared, right? So in a way, it's up to us defining the future in a way, doing it in a way that's not harmful for the new users, the coming people, right? Because they're not as aware as we are on the dangers of the, sharing all that data with everyone.
Great. Any more questions?
So nowadays, Google and Facebook are the big brothers that know who we are all the time, right? So do you really think a startup can solve going back to the attribution issue, solve the attribution problem? Because I've been working with Facebook API, and whenever they want, they close the doors and you don't have access to certain kind of information from users anymore. So, I mean, because users are coming from Instagram, Facebook, Google, paid ads, and all this stuff. So do you really think a startup from the bottom up can solve that huge issue?
So it's super good question. When I started the company in 2011, people already were telling me, why do you want to start this if there's Google and Facebook? And I'm like, okay. I think that there's, as you said also, a long way to go in adtech. I think that there's still going to be many startups that will become unicorns in adtech. I have no doubt. There's still many problems to solve. The attribution problem is one. I stand by what I said, that there's still an attribution problem that is not solved, and I tell you that I know that because I'm in the industry, and if I were an advertiser, that's what I would want. I would want to know who deserves merit. And then, of course, the big monopolies, Google and Facebook, they might fight that, but they cannot fight the will of the advertisers. They need to serve the advertisers. And if advertisers get educated into what they want, they will have to be companies that find solutions to the problems that the advertisers have. That's my view.
And the only thing that I would add to what Jordi just said is that the one thing that Google and Facebook don't have, and I think I'm going to be a little bit aggressive here, but it's transparency. And that is what advertisers and publishers are requesting every single day. And this is, and when I think about being an entrepreneur in this industry, that is the one thing that I can push and that I will always push for, is transparency. That's what the industry needs the most, and it's vital, it's critical to solve that identity piece.
Yeah. And just one little piece, do not forget Amazon, right? Because people don't talk about Amazon in this field anymore, but they are the newcomer, and they're, I mean, they're already very big, and they will be even more. So.
I think we are out of time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Right.
guys. It's
All right.
wonderful. Thanks. Can we get a hand for the panelists? I think you did a good job.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.